Baruch Hashem, you're a bad Jew.
Shalom.
Welcome back to another episode of Bad Jew, the place where there is no such thing as a bad Jew. And Chag Sameach, it is Shavuot, one of the tastiest holidays of the Jewish holiday. With us today, none other than Sruly from Sruly Cooks. Sruly, how are you today?
I am good. I'm excited. Shavuot is probably my favorite of the serious holidays.
I cannot wait, and I want to hear more about that. But first, there is a right of entry onto this podcast, and that is the 4-minute Bad Jew challenge, where you tell your life story in 4 minutes. Are you ready?
I am ready. Is there like a clock or something, or just go?
Oh, here we go. Ready? Echad, shtayim, shalosh, yalla.
Oh, nice. Okay, so my name is Sruly Meyer. I was born and raised in South Florida, more particularly in Miami Beach. So yes, born on the beach. Literally probably like 3 blocks away from the beach. And then I lived a little bit in California. Then I came back to Florida. Then, this is pressure, man. Then I moved to New York when I was probably like, I don't know, my early 20s. Got married, lived in New York for probably 15 years. Took a nice southern Florida boy and turned him rigid and cold in New York. At some point, I think it was when Jack was screaming out of a truck at 4 o'clock in the morning to make a delivery. Some guy screaming. I was like, why do we live here? Shoveling snow. I was like, okay, fine. We'll go back to Florida. We moved back to Florida and moved a little north of where I'm originally from. I live now more like Pembroke Pines. And then work-wise, I was always a doodler in school. Never really like enjoyed the school or classroom setting so much, but I did enjoy art, creativity, history, interesting things. And eventually like became a graphic designer, worked in Virginia for a Chabad for about 4 years in Northern Virginia, the Beltway, like near DC. And then I just turned that into like a graphic design business. Once I got married, I did mostly design. Then it sort of pivoted into marketing, but it became Jewish music featured. So I became very much involved in Jewish music, graphic design, marketing, producing. Ended up working with Benny Friedman on his first 5 albums, produced a number of them. Mordechai Shapiro's first album, Davagad Bey. I did a lot of work with Shmuley Unger, Macha Bracha, marketing, Shweki, like a lot of these guys. And then when I moved back to Florida, I transitioned more to general marketing. So it wasn't just Jewish music, even though I still do that. And then along the way, I started a food blog on Instagram and now also TikTok. And it's done pretty well. I write original recipes. And it's just an outlet for my creativity, but mostly do marketing, social media, and a little bit of music, a little bit of writing. I write for COLlive.com. That's a Chabad community news website and also a magazine. And I just enjoy everything creative, music, food, social media. Love all that stuff. How I do for time?
You're doing great. You got under 2 minutes left.
Oh, so I'll just drop this one. I'm also the oldest of 10 children. My parents were Balchuvas. And I don't know. I got a lot of good recipes on my blog. Check it out. Sruly Cooks, and check out my pages. And on TikTok, I do more like Jewish life, not just cooking. On Instagram, it's like primarily cooking. On TikTok, it's just like Jewish life. Talk about Israel. Talk about being a Jewish person, being an Orthodox Jew, being a father, being like a beard, no horns, as you could see. Just trying to educate the world about what Jewish people are actually like outside of maybe the Hollywood narrative or anything like that. Just want people to get to know regular, Jewish people, all kinds of Jewish people, but primarily religious Jews. We probably have the most stigma attached to us.
Fantastic. Sruly, you nailed that 4-minute Bad Jew challenge.
Nice.
Well done. That was great. You handled the pressure with grace. You did it well. You okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a breather, but I'm good.
Should we take a 5-minute break?
No, let's keep going.
Everyone really should follow Sruly on
Thank
Instagram
you.
and TikTok at Sruly Cooks. Also, I gotta say, Sruly just recently collaborated with HLA on most recent post. These delicious pastries just in time for Shavuot, and I really cannot wait to see what other delicious, tasty creations he creates. You can too if you go on his Instagram and TikTok at Sruly Cooks. So, Sruly,
Yes,
let's get into the podcast here.
let's do it.
What is the real story of Shavuot?
Okay, so I don't want to like break the fourth wall or anything, but if anyone's ever watched an interview before, they know that there was a pre-interview. And as we
What?
discussed on the
No way.
pre-interview, I know it's crazy. I actually enjoy the pre-interviews. Have you ever watched like Conan or whatever? Like they're like not official stuff, like the in between is
Yeah.
always like the most relaxed and like
Yeah.
just chill.
I like that.
But that's the truth. The truth is we discussed a little bit about, and it's something that I always felt, but something that I told you before, and I'll just elaborate more. Shavuos is a very interesting holiday because you have like the serious holidays, right? You have Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, Sukkot, then you have like the fun holidays, Hanukkah, presents, Purim, Hamantashen, Tu B'Shvat, those are fun. And then there's Shavuos, somewhere in the middle, because we're not eating outside in a sukkah, we're not searching the house for chametz, we're not doing any of that stuff. Like, what's our big deal in Shavuos? We have to accept the Torah. We're going to learn about Har Sinai and learning the Torah. And we eat a lot of dairy. So, like, it's kind of like my favorite of the serious holidays, I like to say. But even more so, I think what's so interesting about it is it's not really a physical holiday where we went out of Egypt and we made matzahs and then we built a sukkah and we did it. No, it's a spiritual and almost mental holiday where we are really celebrating our relationship with God, which I think is fascinating because really when you look at it, the relationship between Hashem and us is very much like a marriage. It's a relationship. We know that it's many times discussed in Chassidus and in Kabbalah. That we like Hashem is like almost like took us as like a marriage contract. In fact, the Har Sinai, when Hashem is giving us the Torah and we're learning about these things, this is the marriage contract. Avram Fried, one of the most famous Jewish singers, has a song called Shtar HaTanoim, which generally the Shtar HaTanoim is when a chassan and a kala get married, there's a marriage contract written up. But there's actually a marriage contract written up between Hashem and us. And in this song, it's discussed there, like, what are we doing for Hashem? How much Hashem loves us. And I just think it's a fascinating experience because we're really just getting down to like, what is a marriage? What is a relationship? And it's something that, 2024, we're all, trying to figure out, like, what's the best relationship? What does a marriage actually mean? What does it entail? And really, we could get a lot of our cues from Shavuot. So we get our cues a lot from this holiday where Hashem is like, okay, Abraham was like, oh, wow, there's a God. Then there was Yaakov and Yitzchak and all the Shvatim and the journey to Egypt and becoming slaves and the whole relationship, sort of, I would call dating period between God and the Jewish people, where, Abraham is sort of like the blind date. And it, evolved through Egypt, where we had a little bit of a falling out, and we were slaves. And God sort of, in a way, turned His back on us, and we were, waiting for Him to remember our pain, remember our cries, and eventually came back to us, brought us out of Egypt. But as we know, the desert period was fraught. It was still a lot of doubt. Is this the right relationship? Again, is this a good fit? Are we a good fit? And, we dated a while, 40 years in the desert. That's a long dating period, Hashem tells Moshe, we're going to go up to the Har Sinai. You're going to take these luchos, which is essentially the written, law between Hashem and the people. And still, we're still not like 100% in this relationship. As you see, we had the golden calf and, he didn't come down right away, we thought, and the Jewish people right away sinned. And still, Hashem is like, let me take some time, let me think about this. And we know there's a very famous mashal, analogy story where, before Shavuos, Hashem is almost there, he's ready, we're almost ready to be together with Hashem. And he takes the Torah and he goes to all the nations of the world and he says, wait, before I commit to this relationship with the Jews long term, let me just let the other world, the leaders and the nations know about the Torah. Let them have the opportunity to say, like, later they're going to say, you chose them, or you didn't even give us a choice. So Hashem goes around, or actually, as the mashal says, a malach dressed as a Jewish car salesman, or whatever you want to caricature, you want to assign to it, goes around with this briefcase, and it's all unkept, and he goes to all the different nations, and he says, hey, would you like to buy a Torah? And they're all like, maybe, like, what's in it? And they say, you can't steal. It's not for us. So you can't kill. You can't do this. You can't do that. The joke in this mashal is that they came to America and they said, "Would you like to buy a Torah?" And the president of the United States says, "Maybe, yeah. What's the deal? Like, what's in it?" And they say, "Oh, we have this thing called honor your parents, honor your mother and father." I was, we have this thing called Mother's Day and Father's Day. That's good enough, you know. Let's not go crazy here with honoring your parents. You know, obviously it's a lighthearted story, but you know, eventually Hashem comes, you know, Malach comes back to the Jewish people and is like, "Want this Torah? Do you want to buy a Torah? I want to get a Torah." And the Jewish people are like, "Yeah, as we know, Naaseh Nishma." They right away did it. They accepted it, and then afterwards we learned the laws. You know, we signed the contract even without looking to a certain extent.
It's a
That
cute
was the
story.
connection between Hashem and the love that we had, that we already knew we want this. We want to be connected with God. We want to renew our vow. And we did. And we, you know, Har Sinai happened. And then from then on, we continued to learn the Torah. And as we know, one of the reasons why we eat dairy on Shavuot is because we had not yet learned the laws of shechita, of, you know, slaughtering. So we weren't able to eat meat yet. You know, we could have eaten meat before. We weren't fully, let's say, call it 100% Jewish. But once Har Sinai happened, and once we accepted the Torah, now we got lost. You know, we know that Avram Avinu, Yaakov, Yitzchak, they all put on tefillah and they all did all these mitzvahs, but they did it because they had a spiritual connection to God. They weren't doing it because they were commanded to. They had not yet received the Torah. After our Sinai, that's it. You know, we're married. You know, that's it. We have these laws, we have these rules, we have this relationship contract, and so we didn't really know 100% yet about the meat thing. And a lot of it is commemorative. So, you know, we also stay up the night before and we learn. And I think it's just, again, brought back to this concept where Shavuos is a metaphysical holiday. It's not a physical one. We're not, you know, we're not shaking a lulav. We're not eating matzah. We're not lighting candles or oil. You know, we light candles, obviously, for the holiday, Hanukkah candles or anything like that. It's a relationship. It's a relationship that we have between us and Hashem. And Shavuos is the time of year where we renew that relationship. Once a year, we renew our connection to Hashem. I think that's really beautiful because we can take so many cues from that in our own relationships with our friends, with our loved ones, with our spouses. You know.
Well, I love the idea, and I think that there's a beautiful parallel between relationships and Shavuot. I like this idea of the metaphysical, that you know, there's no ritual props, if you will, that are being involved to commemorate it. But the one thing I want to get clarification on, just for the sake of my own learning curve here. You said the marriage license, right? The marriage license, the ketubah essentially is what that is, and that is the Torah, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And when
it's our roadmap,
right? And so I know that we had a rocky relationship with Hashem at the very beginning, right?
40 years in the desert, you know, that's a while.
And we technically cheated on God with the golden
Absolutely.
calf. You know, when Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments, right? And also,
that's right.
You know, at the very beginning of this process. So we actually cheated on God, and then he still let us back in. Kind of a toxic relationship. But
no one said the Jewish story was a healthy one.
So I guess when do the Jews and Hashem become official? When do they tie the knot officially?
Well, I think you see that even later on as we come into Eretz Yisrael and we see, you know, as the prophets start coming, and then eventually we have David HaMelech. I think that's really sort of like the golden era of the Jewish nation is, you know, we were finished with Egypt, finished with the desert. We moved on to a new generation almost, you know, and we had David HaMelech, we had kings, we had the Beis HaMikdash, we were serving Hashem. And we were one, you know. And listen, why the Jewish journey is fraught with so much pain and discontent, and you could say we're on a very serious break right now. You know, we were on a break. We're on a gullus is like we're on a break. It doesn't mean you could do other things, but Hashem, you know, put us in exile. We are in exile right now. A lot of it has to do, if you even think about it, the negative things that come up in a relationship where we were not good to each other. You know, obviously we know that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed through sinas chinam. It wasn't an external thing that happened to us, but it was our own making. You know, Jewish people we are our own enemies, unfortunately, in many situations. And we did not get along with each other. We fought, we caused each other we weren't good. And that's what happened is Hashem did not appreciate that. And if you take that the relationship from a husband and wife more to like a father and a child. When I'm a father, I have 3 children. When my kids fight, it's very upsetting to me. It's not just, it hurts me because it makes me feel like, did I do something wrong? Did I not do a good job as a parent? Did I not instill them these things? And Hashem looked at us and he sees us and he says, listen, you guys we're so supposed to be together here. Like, what's the problem? What are we doing wrong? So, I know it's a little simplified to say this, but we're kind of in a timeout. Hashem kind of put us in this timeout that we're still hoping to be done with, and we're trying to get better and to show Hashem. So, again, Shavuot is coming around. There's another chance for us to remember, what is this all for? What do we do this for? Why do we do all this? And how can it help us get back to a good place in our relationship?
The way when you describe like the fact that we were like on a timeout, if you will, I just can't help but think of that scene from Friends where Ross continually says we were on a break, right? So, but this exile, I guess maybe we're getting a little bit off track here, but I have a tough time saying that we're in exile. It feels like, when you're in exile, it means that you've been exiled, you've been removed from a place, right? I understand that did happen, right? We finally have a nation, right? We're finally fighting for it. As a matter of fact, we've been fighting for it now for since 1948, for almost 80 years now. I think 80 years exactly. So we have this land of Israel. Why don't we just go back? Why don't we just go? I think we're probably getting a little bit off track here.
I'll give you a little here. Let's say you're a parent and your kids have done something terrible. Who knows what? They ruined the whole house. They ripped it apart. The cushions are everywhere. They're fighting. They're yelling. The kid's scratching. He's got blood over here. You're like, you guys go to your rooms, and I will let you know when it's time to come out. Now, if anyone has been punished as a child, that's the worst punishment you could have. If no one tells you you're grounded for a week, okay, fine, I know it's a week. If no one tells me you go to my room for an hour, okay, an hour it's over. But to go to your room and I'll tell you when it's time for you to come out, that's giving you some time to really like sit with what you did. And in a way, that's where we're at. We're at this point right now. Now, here's the funny part, and this has happened to me when I was a kid, and I've seen my kids do this too. You tell your kids to go to your room, I'll let you know when you come out. And then like an hour or two later, they're just like wandering around the kitchen. You're like, what are you doing here? You're like, okay. They're like, maybe they thought you forgot, or they're like just try to smooth things over,
Right.
And we've been lucky. We've been blessed that Hashem gave us this unbelievable gift that we have Israel and that we have this connection that we didn't have for, listen, we're in Galus now for over 2,000 years. This is, you said 80 years, but for the majority of it, we've been pretty much exiled. And this is a gift. And this is kind of like, I would say, like a chance where people are, that kid wandering out of his room, hoping that his parent is not upset anymore. And we have this. And I think that it's that preliminary period right before we are fully redeemed, where Hashem is kind of like saying, okay, I'll give you a rope. You said you want to come out and pretend like you're not punished anymore. You want to see what's going on. Let me see. And we know, like, I'm Chabad and I'm a Chabad, and I follow the teachings of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was very much an advocate that we're at the end here. We're at the footsteps of Mashiach. We are, we're really there. The Rebbe said we're ready. We're just polishing our buttons and we're ready to be told it's time. We're there. We're literally right there. And that concept of being able to be in Eretz Yisrael and experience this, I think, is that preliminary, like, sort of test. And we're being tested as a nation. And I think, look, the more pain we go through, the more that's going on in this world, our relationship with Hashem is based on our relationship with each other. I think that is something that is very fundamental to the Jewish experience.
I like that.
We know that Yom Kippur, Hashem will forgive you. You could assume that Hashem has forgiven you, but you cannot continue when you did something against your fellow man. You need to go to your fellow man and you need to say, I wronged you, please forgive me. And Hashem does not say, oh, don't worry, I'll just blank check that. Hashem wants us to go to that person and do that. It's almost like easier for Hashem to forgive us than for our own brother and sister. And I think that that's where we're at now, because Hashem wants his children and his connection, like that we have with them, to be in a good place. And that's the bottom line, is any father, any parent wants their children to get along. once he sees the family is healthy, then the parent feels like we could all, be in a better place. But Hashem is waiting for us to say, let's put all our petty stuff aside and get along. It doesn't matter. Like you said, I'm reform, I'm conservative, I'm practicing, I'm not practicing. It doesn't matter. You're Jewish. You're Jewish. I'm Jewish. We have to get along. We're part of the one family. And once we learn that lesson, I think that's going to make us stronger. And Hashem to say, okay, fine, enough of this. We're not on a break anymore. Let's be together again. And I think that's, again, all about relationships. And that Shavuot is a time to really evaluate what it means to be in a healthy relationship, respecting each other, tolerating each other's differences. And the same thing comes with being religious or being spiritual or being connected to Hashem. We have a relationship with Hashem just like we have a relationship with a spouse or a child or a parent or a friend. It's a relationship. And this is the holiday to work on that. This is the holiday to focus on what it means to be Jewish, what it means to have Hashem, what it means to have a spiritual connection to something. And not just Hashem, but your siblings, your spouses, your family. It's really important. And again, like I said, we're in a tough time. And I think that the best that we could do is when we're together. When you saw the hostages were released, everyone was celebrating. It didn't matter if they wore a kippah, they didn't wear a kippah, if they had a tattoo, if they had short sleeves, long sleeves, kapata, shtreimel, it didn't matter. People were genuinely happy. And that's where we come together. That is for sure where we're strongest. I'm not saying the chiddush here in Torah. I'm telling you, we are the strongest as a nation, as a people, when we are united and we're together. So I think that's the lesson here. I think that's very important. And Shavuot is a great time to focus on that.
Oh, man. I think that's a beautiful message. Let's backtrack to Shavuot for a second here. I guess what I'm struggling with a little bit here with this explanation, right, is you've described it as a happy holiday. I know for a fact that we eat lots of dairy and sweets and there's honey too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
On this holiday, right? So we eat all these sweets, we have a good time, but it's our entire journey, as you've described, this entire relationship that we've had with God is super rocky. It's, again, feeling a little bit toxic the way it's been described. It's like, hey, listen, things didn't really go the way that they were supposed to. But I'm still going to reward you with sweets. I'm still going to go out of my way and overextend myself. It almost feels codependent. So what am I missing here?
Well, I think we have to reevaluate what codependent means because, again, when you learn Chassidus, you're asked the question as why did God make this world? He didn't need it. He did not need it. He was a supernal being. He was beyond reality and time and space and everything. He doesn't even relate to us in a sense. Like, why did he need this? And Hashem wanted to continue to refine. He wanted to refine this thing that he had, this existence that he had. And he created a world that was purposely imperfect, purposely had issues, because as we know, the best thing that comes from is when you work hard on something, when you refine it, when you go through it. So codependent is, a charged therapy type of word that has a lot of toxicity to it. But at the same time, Hashem created this world so that we could make it a better place. We could make it holier. We could make it special. So it started here, and it's our job to bring it up here. And that's a very, very hard charge for us. That's not easy. We're human. Hashem did build in a lot of defects in us. We're petty, we're stubborn, we're jealous, we're, territorial, we have egos. Hashem built this all into us. But at the end of the day, this is our challenge. This is our charge. We have to overcome those things. And Hashem created us in this way so that we could overcome that. Because once you refine something, once you squeeze out all the bad, you have nothing but good left. And that's where we're trying to go here. So it is true that the Jewish people have gone through quite a lot. But I will also say that the plan is that it's meant to be that at the end of the day, we're going to be in a very special place. And I think that time is really what holds us, pushes us back, because we don't realize how much time there is in this world, according to Hashem's view, not just our limited 70, 80, 100, 120 years. The process that has gone on for thousands of years, and time is a much longer period. So yes, for us, you and me in this world, that's, I'm born in the 70s. I don't want to guess when you're born in, but it's a blip on the dot, man. We're just a blip on the dot. And and we're building on what's come before us. And yes, we do acknowledge the pain and the tragedies and the things that the Jewish people have been through before this. But I think we're also blessed with all of their knowledge and success. And look, we're in a time today where people are saying, I really didn't think this could happen. I didn't. I can tell you right now, my grandparents and my great grandparents are Holocaust survivors. My great grandfather left Germany after Kristallnacht, begged his siblings to go out. They all were like, "Nah, it's a one-time thing. Like we've seen this before." And I thought that would never possibly happen. I could never see anti-Semites marching in the streets of America. I never thought I would see things like this today. I never saw the things that I get on my comment section on my TikTok. I'm sure you do also. Are so beyond. They're not even veiled. Like literally had a comment on my filter today that said, we should have finished you in the ovens. Like it's not even, they're not even trying to hide it. They're just like, and it's shocking to me, but at the same time, there's this weird sense of we've been here before and we've overcome it and we're still here. And while every other superpower and nation in the world has gone and come and gone and oppressed us and disappeared, we are actually still here. Like physical proof from this podcast right here. You and I are still here. We're still talking about Har Sinai, Shavuot. So that I don't know, like this gives me a lot of confidence that yeah, this sucks right now, and we're going through a really difficult period, but things will get better. And maybe that ties into what you were saying before about the relationship and Shavuot. And I think there's a confidence that we need to have and remember that we have been through this. And at the end of the day, as much as Hashem is testing us and Hashem, we've had timeouts and breaks and it could be codependent, whatever. But at the end of the day, that love between us and Hashem is still there because look at the world, even the last 2,000 years, look at the last 3,000 years. They're all gone. We're still here. So obviously, at the end of the day, Hashem does love us and Hashem does want us to be here. And Hashem continues to save us and bring us hope. And I think, again, it's up to us to take us that last piece. He's waiting for us to get our heads on 100%. And look, I see a lot of positive signs out there. I really do. I think it's beautiful. I think that we're gonna get there.
I love this idea. And I'm going to take a crack at the takeaway, the moral of the story here. Yeah. And that is the idea that, yeah, it's been an imperfect relationship, but the reason why we're celebrating it, the reason why we're embracing it is because if Hashem has infinite love for us, we have to have infinite love for Hashem. We have to have an infinite love for the world, despite how difficult it can be. And so in our efforts to elevate the world, we every day have this chance to celebrate life and the fact that we have the blueprints, the instructions for a better future. It's called Torah. We have that ability. And so through our Torah, we're able to elevate the world and bring ourselves closer and closer to Hashem.
I think even the smaller things, like you say, sweets, stuff like that, like, we compare the Torah as compared to the sweetest thing. And, when you take a child before his upshare and you take him to the school and they put honey with the olive base. And we want to teach that Torah is sweet. And that is the same thing with us right now. So Hashem is continually trying to give us carrot. Sometimes we need the stick, but Hashem wants us to have the carrot. And that want is because he loves us no matter what. It's beyond anything else. That love is beyond. And I think that's what separates a toxic relationship or a codependent relationship is it's not about ego. It's not about power. It's not about control. It's about love,
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I want to wrap up this episode, but before we wrap up the episode, I have one important question for you, Sruly. And that is, what is your favorite Shavuot treat?
Mm-hmm. I love cheesecake. I just do. I love cheesecake, and I don't know why I don't really eat it so much throughout the year, but Shavuos I do. I eat a lot of cheesecake, and maybe it's because I'm Ashkenazi, so my stomach is not so happy about it. But it's delicious, and I don't know. Again, like I said, I like that the holiday is very focused on this spiritual concept that we're gonna focus on our relationship with Hashem and the Torah, and it's it gives us a chance to reevaluate ourselves and where we are in our place and in our families and our life and our religious pursuits. And I think that's an important thing to have. Shabbos is a time to connect, right? So Shavuos is our yearly time to reconnect on a relationship level between us and Hashem. And I think that's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Sruly, thank you for being on Bad Jew. What is the
My
best way for
pleasure.
people to connect with you and follow you should they want to connect, stay in touch?
Yeah, you can reach me through my social media, Sruly Cooks, and I have a website, SrulyMeyer.com. You can check that out. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm easy to find, I promise you.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. And to the listeners of Bad Jew, please, if you like this episode, please give it a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all of your favorite listening platforms. Please leave us a comment on YouTube. Please subscribe wherever you can. Also, we have our website, badjew.co, where you can go and buy Bad Jew merch. My favorite item is the Mazel Tov tee, where you can go to the gym, rep your muscles, show them off while looking Mazel Tov since 5784. It's a good year to be a Jew. Time to embrace it with some Bad Jew merch. To the listeners, thank you again for listening to Bad Jew. Hag Shavuot Sameach, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Thank you for having me.
Shalom.